Hi, the chapter 6 of our book Introduction to Sociology deals with the family and gender. While doing this, the chapter aims to provide you information about different sociological perspectives about family, nuclear and extended family, types of marriage, explanations, the concepts of patriarchy, the relationship between family and industrializations, recent changes in the structure of family, definitions of sex and gender, and lastly, the concepts of domestic violence. Starting with the different sociological perspectives about family, this chapter talks about certain approaches to the family, such as functionalism, Marxism, and feminist perspectives. Functionalist perspective claim that the family is universal, natural, and functional. They argue that the family exists in all societies. It is the expression of fundamental and universal biological needs and serves the main social functions. Among those who approach the family from a functionalist perspective, we can point out Durkheim, Murdoch, and Parsons. Marxist view on family, on the other hand, bases its analysis on capitalism and capitalist modes of production. Engels, for example, argued that in the era of primitive communism, the family as such didn't exist. Only with the emergence of property ownership and the state, the monogamous and marriage and monogamous nuclear family developed. The roots of the monogamous nuclear family lie in the idea of having heirs who were to inherit the property. Thus, the family was created to control women's sexuality and assure the legitimacy of heirs of the males. It is also discussed that the family served the interests of the capitalism in various ways, namely through the unpaid work of women, by the reproduction of the labor force, and by being an important unit of composition. Feminists also critically approached to the family. They challenged cooperative and harmonious family image and claimed that the women are in a subordinate position in the family. They see the family as an institution in which patriarchal values are learned by individuals and which perpetuates patriarchal society. For radical feminists, on the other hand, the main exploiter of women is not capitalism, but patriarchy, and patriarchy's main and fundamental institutions is the family. For radical feminists, the most fundamental and universal form of domination is the oppression of women. Radical feminists also advocate the exterminations of the patriarchal nuclear family and the establishment of alternative family structure like separatism. The chapter 6 also discusses about nuclear and extended family in a detailed fashion. The nuclear family is the smallest family, which consists of parents and children. A family in which one or more relatives, such as grandparents, aunts, or uncles, live in the same home with the parents and their children is named extended family. Families can extend vertically and horizontally. The vertical extensions means people from another generations are parts of family. Horizontal extensions, on the other hand, means people of same generation with the parents are parts of the family. In nuclear families, marital bonds are more important than blood ties. In extended families, on the other hand, blood ties are more important than marital bonds. Nuclear families are temporary units because they decompose with the death of the parents or the marriage of children, but extended families live longer. Extended families can provide more support and assistance to its members, thus they can overcome crises such as death or divorce more easily. In nuclear families, on the other hand, because of their small size, members can increase their personal development and freedom much more important when compared with the extended families. Um, Following to explain certain characteristics of nuclear and extended families, the chapter 6, which is titled Family and Gender, turns to discuss different types of marriage. In this discussion, Chapter 5 identifies marriage such as according to number of spouses, according to place of residence, according to genealogy, according to kinship system, and lastly, according to the power relations. You will find out quite a number of different terms that explains every different types of marriage in chapter 6. Following this, the chapter focuses on one of the most important issues of our era as well as sociological studies of family, namely the issue of patriarchy. By pointing out various characteristics of patriarchy or how it is considered in sociology, the chapter provides certain definitive answers to the questions of what patriarchy means. Patriarchy means the institutionalizations of dominance of man over women and children in the family and the extension of this dominance to the society in general. It is as a system of social structure and practices in which men dominate and oppress or exploit women. It refers to a male domination to the power relationship by which men dominate the woman. It also refers to a system whereby women are kept subordinate in a number of ways. In the patriarchal system, women's labor power, reproduction, roles, sexuality, mobility, properties, and economic sources are under the patriarchal control. In relation to its fifth aim, the chapter 6 then turns to discuss the relationship between family and industrializations. Many sociologists in the mainstream sociology tend to relate nuclear family to the industrialization process. For example, Talcott Parsons argued that industrializations tend to undermine the extended family and larger kinship networks. In the process of structural differentiation, specialist institutions such as let's say schools, business firms, hospitals, or police forces took over many functions of the extended family. It's also argued that industrialization process is one of the reasons for the breakdown of the extended family. Some scholars argue that in the first stage of pre-industrial families existed. With the emergence of industrial revolution, families expanded. By the 1970s, extended families disappeared. The nuclear family was separated from the extended family and symmetrically family appeared. On the other hand, some other scholars do not advocate this kind of relationship between industrializations and the family. They raised the argument that industrialization gave rise to the nuclear family and claimed that the nuclear family had social, political, and economic consequences, which in part led to the industrialization process. In its sixth aim, the chapter also focuses on some recent changes in the structure of family. In this regard, it points out some changing patterns in Western societies. The changes can be summarized as follows. First of all, the influence of extended families and other kin groups on people is declining. Rights of women and children are increasingly recognized. Alternative patterns outside the conventional marriage patterns and stable reproductive relationships are increasing. Birth rate outside the marriage are increasing. Number of single parents, families are increasing. The family size is in the process of decline, on the other hand. Divorce rates increases as well. And lastly, in marriage, personal fulfillment of people gains more importance than the economic partnership, which was heavily important, which was heavily significant previously. Um, Apart from this, the chapter 6 also focuses on the definitions of what we call sex and what we call gender, the differences between those two terms. Sex refers to a biological and physiological characteristic of a differences between males and females. Since sex refers to biological differences, characteristics of sex do not show significant differences among societies. Gender, on the other hand, is socially constructed term and used to distinguish women from men in social terms. We should underline the concept of the phrase of social terms in this sentence. Gender is a social constructed term and used to distinguish women from men in social terms. It refers to the differences in norms, roles, and behaviors between men and women. Individuals learn the gender expectations in society and learn to be a man or woman by following the norms. Gender differences and gender roles are set in hierarchical positions, such as men are superior and women are subordinate. The gender differences in society make the man superior through his role as the breadwinner, for example. Woman, on the other side, stands in a lower secondary position. Lastly, the chapter points out domestic violence. It identifies the domestic violence as a type of violence of one partner over another in a marriage. It may occur as a physical, sexual, emotional, economic abuse, threats, or isolation. It may occur also as a kind of symbolic violence, which implies that the violence doesn't have to be necessarily physical. It occurs in every culture and in all socioeconomic educational groups. The reasons of domestic violence, on the other hand, are the structures and functions of the family and the organizations of society. So domestic violence is an extension of the legitimizations of male violence and the dominations of patriarchal politics and economical institution in the public sphere. Um, Thank you for watching.